Hot Button.
Hey guys, and welcome to Hot Button. This is part 2 of our Destiny episode that we did not plan initially. This is me back again on the intro. I'm not getting usurped this time.
Yeah, I should post this fucking Discord.
I'm Randall Beatrice here. I'm Randall Beatrice here with Austin Blakesley.
What's up, ISIS? Sorry, that was the PewDiePie intro. I stole it. My bad.
And back with host Chris Anantuano.
Hey!
To continue our story on what went wrong with Destiny.
I was gonna say, it's a me, a Doom guy.
That famous line.
Yeah, so it might seem a bit unnatural, like we said in the previous ending.
Yeah, if you listen to last week.
All this is done at the same time.
All premeditated.
It's called movie magic. I hate to bring you behind the scenes and get a little meta, but I talk too much, and this is the result.
We cut like 4 hours out of that Destiny episode.
Yeah,
A lot of it's just me going like, I just wish I could play it again with all my friends.
My laptop just started updating. Good
All
thing
right.
we're done.
So now we'll hop back in.
Yeah, let's take it back into where this game launched.
Take it away, past Chris.
This is the meat of the whole thing. Destiny is one of the best feeling first-person shooters ever made.
Oh, absolutely.
Probably the
agree.
best. I shouldn't even say one of the best.
On
It's
mouse and
probably the
keyboard
best.
and controller.
It
Yeah.
is a benchmark for all shooters to come. There's a reason Overwatch, which I think, in my opinion, is the second best feeling shooter of all time, smoothness-wise.
Yeah, I love
They
Overwatch.
took a lot from Destiny.
I'm a big fan of how
They helped.
They did.
They helped.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
we'll get into that too.
But I'm a big
Overwatch feels so good because they had consultation from Bungie, who made Halo, and Infinity Ward, who made
yeah.
Call of Duty.
Yeah,
like,
and don't get me wrong,
and
Call of
Treyarch.
Duty and Battlefield feel great.
Oh, yeah.
They
No,
feel great
yeah.
within their own realms. When you go from playing Destiny to Battlefield, which I often did back then, Battlefield is a lot clunkier and heavier, but it works for the game. You feel it. Clunky is probably a bad word.
I'm a
Heavier
big,
is a better word.
Heavier,
I've
yeah.
probably said this before, but I'm a big fan of Siege and how it feels. It's got some weight to
Rainbow
it.
feels
Six
great.
is also
Yeah.
heavy, like
Yes,
Battlefield.
yeah.
Yeah. Rainbow Six has always had that, like kind of like heavy
Yeah. It's
touch.
more tactical.
But
and stuff.
overall wise, I think just Halo, nothing beats Destiny's feel. Nothing beats jumping, shooting, sliding, running. You know, like
I
just
only have-
absolute-
I
Holy
only
shit,
have
that
one.
melee.
I only have one more game.
What's that?
Titanfall.
Titanfall.
Yeah.
But see, once again, Titanfall has its own.
It's born out of the.
It's made by Infinity
I know.
Made
Ward.
by Infinity Ward, yeah.
Yeah.
Titanfall is my favorite feeling.
Titanfall also has its
first-person
own,
game.
like,
Yeah.
notch, like
Yeah,
in that
totally,
feelings. Like
yeah.
nothing beats Titanfall like running, shooting, sliding, shooting the grappling hook,
Yeah.
and fucking sniping somebody before you hit the ground.
I do like the Destiny that the classes are split up into how you want your movement to be.
By the way, by the time this
Like-
comes out, you missed it. Titanfall is on sale. The whole collection for Titanfall 2
Is
for
it really?
$4 on Xbox
Oh my
One right
god!
now.
Please buy it. That's so worth it.
I bought it
But
on
I
PC again.
gravitated in Destiny to the Hunter instantly because I just liked the way that jetpack felt. Like,
Yeah.
like
Each
Yeah.
character doesn't jump. Like the Hunter had more of a traditional like double jump kind
Yeah,
of video
that's-
game
it
feel.
reminded me of
The
Titanfall,
Titan
yeah.
had like a jetpack, which felt more like low gravity Spartan kind
It's
of.
a little
ish.
more floaty.
Warlock was absolutely like floating. Like you would
Yeah.
jump and like kind of like literally
that's the one.
glide
Yeah,
and
sorry,
float.
that's the
I
one that's a little more
love the
floaty.
Warlock.
Yeah.
Absolutely hate the
Hunter-
Warlock.
Hunter
jump.
all the way.
Hunter all the way. Yeah. But I'll get into that at the end. I want to keep
Yo.
all the
We have a lot of
You
Warlock
gonna-
friends, so I know we're
You're
talking
gonna
shit.
give me an option to be a space wizard. I'm gonna be a space wizard, dude. I don't know what to tell you.
So,
Titan was like the soldier. That was the class,
despite all
Titans
this,
are garbage. I think we can all.
even our friends that play Titan don't like playing Titan.
despite all this amazing gameplay and this great shooting, something felt wrong, and it wasn't really hard to notice what felt wrong either. Where was this epic story that was so talked about?
Yeah.
Where was this lore that was teased? This epic mythic tale of space opera proportions?
It was in an app.
What was in its place was almost hard to explain.
Grimoire cards. That's what they were called.
Yeah.
Ugh, God, what a nightmare. Having a high Grimoire score back then was like such a weird flex. Like I remember being like, well, mine's higher than everybody.
I don't even
beat.
know what the fuck that meant.
You would get it from like beating X amount of certain types of enemies or doing
It's
weird
like their
shit.
achievement system.
Yeah.
But your achievements would unlock you little pieces of lore that you
Right.
could go to a separate website and look up.
Which
Yeah.
should have been in the game. But anyway, so it almost felt like a game was there. Like a tale was fully realized in like a
Right.
day-long pass.
Yeah.
I came up with this analogy when I was delirious last night. It was like somebody dropped a plate on the ground, and then somebody picked up all that glass and said, huh, somebody dropped a bowl, and then tried to put it back together with all the
Just duct
glass,
taped.
and like just built a bowl. And they put it back together the best way they could.
Yeah.
Well, it turns out that analogy wasn't far off from what actually happened. Joe Staten, who is the head writer for Bungie,
I'm sure he was thrilled with the end result of.
he and his team had put together a supercut of the cinematics from the story and a couple of other things. And they presented it to the senior leadership in Bungie. They were not impressed. The story was very linear, and apparently on paper they said it was solid, it made sense, but it didn't really fit with the direction they wanted to take the game, because they were talking about all those MMOs elements,
Yeah.
like the
Like the
multiplayer
multiplayer element
storyline,
to
all
it.
this stuff.
A lot of people who worked on the original story for Destiny blame that supercut. They
Really?
said that the supercut didn't do the story
Didn't do it
justice.
justice.
Yeah.
This is kind of insane to me, because how is this the first time that this sort of problem came up? I
don't
have
know.
no idea how this is the first
I
time.
want to tell all about
because
the
and it doesn't
story.
exist.
Yeah, I
because
know.
Joe Staten never even commented on when the original interview and all this
Someone's
stuff.
gonna publish a book.
I have no idea how this happened, but it was a catastrophic problem. It was enough that the entire story was completely scrapped and a complete rebuild was to begin less than 1 year from its slated March 2014 release date. It'd already been pushed back 6 months
They
from
missed
its
their
original
holiday
release.
window. Yeah.
So they were supposed to come out in March. This is happening around summer 2000, around E3, a little later than E3 2013. This happened. The writing team was shunned.
This is the stupidest piece of information. This whole thing. Go ahead.
I know. I put this in specifically because I knew you guys were like, "This is fucking dumb. This is some corporate structure bullshit." A new creative team was formed from some of the Bungie higher ups and other creative leads called Iron Bar.
Iron Bar.
And another team of designers and producers called Blacksmith, who would hammer and polish the Iron Bar.
My eyes are rolling to the back of my head.
So dumb.
God.
Remember when I said that Joe Staten was not Joe Staten, Jason Jones was a fucking nerd?
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
This is what they were like.
Dork!
Oh, creative team called Iron Bar. Yeah, well, blah. They'll call it Blacksmith, like they're forging a bar. That'd be so cool. So,
Keep going.
if you're interested in the actual content of the original story and what they took out and left in and what characters were changed and what was removed from the lore and all that stuff, I suggest reading. Jason Schreier did a complete story about this, and I suggest going on Kotaku or looking that up because it's an incredible read and it dives way into the specific narrative elements. I left a lot of it out because if you've never listened to Destiny, you might already be a
wouldn't
bit.
know, right.
Sorry, if you've never listened. If you never played Destiny, you might already be a bit lost about some of the stuff we're talking about. But he goes into detail about like specific things that were taken, left out. And
I
things.
do want to make a point to add something here, though, just so people know the craziness of how they patched this shit together.
Yeah.
So we won't get into specifics. I mean, like the things like Rasputin and Osiris and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
basically,
Vladimir Putin?
they cut entire sections from the game because they were just like, so the area they added in Taken King was originally in the game, and then they cut it and redid it for
the
Taken
Taken King is the major
wow.
DLC that came.
Yeah.
out.
And they
I mean, that's what brought everybody
pushed it back
Yeah.
to Taken King, because Taken King was being worked on before Destiny came out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
10-year plan.
yeah, 10-year plan. But like, there are characters that are mentioned in the original story that were shown in trailers that are not in the final game, like in E3 trailers, and it's like this weird amalgamation of like one character was shown in a trailer, and then they took the personality and some lines of dialogue from him and gave it to another character who ended up being Nathan Fillion's character.
Yeah, Cade 6
Yeah,
is probably
Cade 6.
arguably one of the
And
most
then
famous
Absolutely,
characters.
yeah.
And then they took his character model and gave it to a new character who is Aldrin,
Yeah,
Like,
Aldrin,
yeah. So they took characters they didn't
brother
think
for
fit,
theirs.
and just shredded them into their separate parts, and then dispersed it throughout the game.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's
Why did I
basically
think that was a good idea?
It was basically a Frankenstein story.
Yeah.
In Jason Schreier's article, I didn't want to use like his exact example, but we can bring it up in conversation. He kind of to like an alphabet, and this is kind of what the Bungie people were telling him. Like, oh hey, A needs to go to B, but C's got a cool part, so let's cut off the top C and put it in here and mix it with B, and then it'll lead into D. Like, they basically would cobble together what missions they had made over the last 4 years and try to formulate them into some sort of less linear story. They would pull parts from one and stitch them to others to make new missions and new story elements.
Not how writing works.
No, it's not. They changed the progression of which maps you would encounter first. Apparently, you would see all 4 planets within the first couple missions of the game originally, and they threw that all through.
Yeah.
This time they made the planet director screen that would end up in the final game. Like, you remember, just if you played Destiny,
The
ever,
map,
planet
Earth,
director
the
screen.
moon.
Yeah.
That was never in the original. It was not set up like that.
No, because they wanted it to feel more like an MMO. They wanted it to be able to play it in whatever order
In whatever
you wanted.
order you wanted it to. Yeah.
Which you could play missions a little bit out of order, but it was mostly
It was
linear.
mostly you still had to
Yeah.
unlock the next planet by playing through the story. But you didn't have to like do the strike on Earth to start the moon missions.
Yeah.
You know, and
there
vice
was a
I
lot
mean, the
of
strikes were designed to run multiple times.
that. It's funny because Destiny ended up not having a ton of cutscenes.
And originally, there was supposed to be a cutscene at the beginning of every single mission.
At beginning and end.
And think of how like Call of Duty.
Yeah.
Remember how Call of Duty used to
Yeah,
intro like, here we
absolutely.
are, we're going to France
Yeah.
to do this. Same thing. Like it was supposed to have a cutscene with
How do you-
characters talking
but
and all
like,
this
how
stuff.
do you incorporate that into a multiplayer thing where you want each player to feel like they're the ones influencing the universe?
Well, that's exactly why they fired his ass.
Yeah.
But
He was writing another Halo, and they wanted an MMO.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
mean,
the
a lot of
problem
MMOs
is he wrote an incredible amount of awesome lore.
Like the baseline
Dude
quest,
is a great writer.
Totally, but the baseline quest to a lot of MMOs is basically that. Like, you know,
Well,
like
yeah, but I think it was just like they had never done this sort of thing before, and he wrote a lot of the Halos. So you got to think he's coming from writing this sort of linear mission.
what if everybody was Master Chief?
yeah, this linear mission-based story kind of mission, and then it ends up being like a more
Yeah.
world building is essential. I don't remember if we talked about this on the first ever. Oh yeah, we did talk about it. How if you listen to episode 1, 38 Studios, they hired. Well, who did they hire? Was it the writer?
Fuck.
R.A. Salvatore.
Ari
Ari
Salvatore.
Salvatore, yes.
What is the one
You think
thing-
I know?
he
I hosted
wrote-
that episode.
He wrote 10,000 years of lore
10,000 years
for the
of lore.
world before
Yeah.
they even started building a story.
Yeah.
Because that's how you build like an MMO. And that kind
I
of
wonder.
shit,
I
you
bet
know
that's
what
probably
I mean?
how Jar Jar Martin is consulting on that
Yes,
next
Jar
from.
Jar R. Martin.
I heard that too.
Wait, did I say that?
Yeah.
Wait, I think he said George.
Yo,
I said
I know.
George R. R. Martin.
We gotta wrap
Motherfucker.
this up. I gotta go Photoshop some things.
Dude, Jar Jar was like the fucking beard in the hat.
Motherfucker. No, but that's. God damn it.
Holy shit.
Anyway, that's how Jar Jar probably is like how he was consulted on the next From Software game.
Oh yeah, an Elden Ring. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, fuck off. I'm playing Dark Souls 3 right now, already more into the lore than I ever was in Game of Thrones. Like,
I'm gonna play back the tape. I didn't fuck that up.
no, you didn't. It just sounded like it. It just sounded like it.
Jar Jar R. Martin.
All right, so this is a quote. The priority was, hey, we have to take a bunch of content that we spent millions of dollars on.
Literally.
We need to cobble it together in a way that's not going to break continuity, and we've got to do it quickly. End quote.
Recipe for success if I've ever heard it.
Yeah.
Over the summer of this rebuild, head of the writing team, Joe Staten, left the company.
Fuck this.
They asked him, Jason Schreier, I'm sure, and Kotaku, and everybody reached out to
Yeah.
him. Nothing. Wouldn't say anything.
He probably can't.
Yeah, he's
Not
probably
just
under
can't.
NDA.
To be honest, he wrote all of that shit, and they were like, this is not what we want. That's tough. You got to think about, like,
Oh, yeah.
it's awkward. When I have an awkward conversation with my boss, it's like, hey, stop texting 48 hours a day at work. Yeah, I'm sorry. I feel weird. Could you imagine being like, hey, everything you wrote for a video game that costs $500 million sucks. We need you to just not. Like, it's it's a fucked up situation.
That's disheartening, yeah.
And it's a shame because a lot of that lore stayed in the game. And there's an incredible podcast, and I'm so sorry I forgot your name right now. I wish I knew it. That dives into the lore of Destiny by reading all the grimoire and kind of like stitching it together, like we do. They do several hour-long episodes on all these things. And
they had
the lore is amazing for this
I
game.
think IGN or GameSpot used to have a separate division that solely covered Destiny content.
Yeah,
for a
IGN
while.
had a podcast called Fire Team Chat.
That's pretty good.
Fire Team Chat, and that would come up in the forums a lot.
Anybody remember that Twitter account called Legendary Endgram that just tweeted Destiny
Yes.
jokes? When Austin I think turned me onto it. It's fucking great. I miss it. They had that legendary tweet. Roses are red, your item was blue, your Endgram was purple, sucks to be you.
The Ishtar Collective.
Ishtar Collective.
Ishtar Collective, okay.
Okay.
That was-
I
Ishtar
wanted to find
Collective
their
was
name.
like a website, I think, and I don't know if it might have been that podcast or another one, but they did a really great deep dive into especially the history of the Hive. We won't get into it now. Like, we can talk after. I can talk your fucking ear off if you know me about Destiny lore. The Hive were originally supposed to be like the big original enemy, and they ended up
Yes.
kind of being not backseated, but like
Were they the Covenant of this universe?
they were like kind of like the Covenant of the universe.
Yeah.
So
It's weird that not to get into Destiny lore, but like the way they had to stitch it together, like the Vex ended up being the big enemy.
they ended up being the big enemy of the
Yeah.
first one. Yeah, exactly. And which ultimately, if you know the Vex lore, I always thought the Vex should have been the major enemy. If you guys want, I'll send you. I've written several pieces of Destiny fan fiction. I'm not even joking. I'm talking like 5-6 pages of full-on narratives.
How sexy is it?
It's not sexy at all. It's all like action and like
never mind.
skybox related.
I mean, that's my shit.
But I like the lore a lot, and I was always like, man, I should write my own Destiny story.
Is Tracer in it?
Yeah. All right, so Joe Staten left the company. Sad. Dude wrote Halo.
Yes.
He also worked on Marathon, I think, and Myth.
Oh,
So
he was like.
he's been with the company
He's old-timer.
since almost
Yeah.
the beginning.
Yeah.
When the game
He-
was released after an inevitable extension to September, it was very noticeable that some sort of debauchery had taken place. The story
Not
wasn't
the
the
fun
only...
kind of debauchery.
Yeah, no. The story wasn't the only thing that was annoying either. The loot system was broken, as you just mentioned with your Endgram poem there. The grind was so real.
Remember the loot cave?
I actually have kind of a reverence for the grind, only because when you got a legendary fucking gun in that game, that felt important. As opposed to like 2 when they just kind of give you one after a mission.
I didn't hate the grind, but I'm also the exception, okay? I'm not the rule for this scenario.
I don't like grinds in games traditionally, but when I got a legendary gun in Destiny before Austin, I felt pretty good about it. Because he played that game way more than me.
Oh, well, we'll get into the random loot system. The grind was,
Jesus was looking out on
RNGesus.
for me that day.
the grind was real. There was a strange leveling system at the time.
Yeah.
You couldn't hit max level cap unless you had every piece of raid armor, which all dropped randomly from the bosses. We'll get to that stuff. And this turned off a lot of the other players. Myself, you're talking about a guy who watched the alpha, played the beta, was obsessed with IGN leaked concept art. I was committed to this game one way or the other.
Sure.
So you could get some leeway from me. You're not going to get leeway from the kid who just went to get a PS4 and happened to get Destiny bundled with it, and now he's playing this game like, what the fuck is this?
He cashed in his Red Bull
Yeah.
fucking code, and
The game received below expected review scores.
that was shocking.
They were expecting 90s, 80s.
It got
not
70
80s,
something?
90 something.
76.
76 for Destiny 1.
About 70s across the board.
There goes your
Little
bonus.
side
Vanilla
note.
Destiny.
I don't know if you can bring this up, but there was that kind of hurt the studio morale
Oh, that's a shame.
because Activision based bonuses off of Metacritic
Oh,
score.
they were one of the companies that did that?
That
Yep.
comes up in some other shit about
Ooh,
Activision
ouch.
too. I've heard that's
Oh,
not the
yeah,
first
yeah.
time I've heard
And they
that.
weren't getting Game of the Year awards, you know?
No.
Like the Halo, yeah, they weren't getting the... Oof. Because the Halo games, they traditionally score pretty well.
Yeah, they did. Austin's right. It was disappointing.
Yeah.
The community was talking, but Bungie was listening. The community was already building its dedicated fan base that would be one of the hallmarks of this game over its lifetime. Those of us who stuck around were interested, saw the potential, and were suckered in by its scientific manipulation of our serotonin and smooth shooting
Oh boy,
gameplay.
how did they manipulate my serotonin?
That's how they get you.
That's how they get you. There's an actual article I read about how Destiny uses how they literally went into real life gambling sort of
Oh my god. Was the title of the article called "Dangling the Carrot"?
Yeah. How there's real tech. I'm almost 100% sure there's some sort of code that says if you don't play Destiny for months and get on, you'll get a good item immediately.
Oh my god.
Because when I would do that, I would hop on after a month of not playing and get something good immediately.
And you're
hey.
I should play this the next 48 hours.
Point is, the community in this game has always been incredible to me. It's one of those games where there's a vocal minority that gets a lot of attention, but the forums were lively.
Well, because there was a sense of mystery around it, kind of like Dark Souls. Yeah. Like you had people that wanted to figure out everything the game had to offer.
Exactly, and I mean everything.
Yeah.
These people in these forums talk to Phil's a top contributor to the Destiny subreddit still to this day.
Is he really?
Yeah. We were really big on this forums and all the subreddits. That's where changes got made. Things that were actually talked about and discussed on these forums, Bungie literally read them.
You don't get things like that Ishtar Collective podcast if
Without
you don't have a dedicated community.
The first DLC, The Dark Below, was released, I think in December. Pretty sure.
Yes, it was December.
I bought it. I remember.
And I bought the expansion pass with the game.
Okay.
Yep.
Because it was supposed to be, as per the Activision contract, major release of the game, minor DLC, major $60 DLC, minor DLC, DLC, full game, minor DLC, blah blah blah. For
10-year
10
plan.
10-year plan.
I'm just gonna keep saying that.
The Dark Below was underwhelming.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
By the end of the year, things were not looking good for the future of Destiny. Like we said, the convoluted leveling system had to have pieces of raid gear, kept a lot of people out from reaching max level. Those people who were dedicated but not really dedicated, I saw a statistic, 13% of players played raids in Destiny.
Holy shit,
That's
really?
insane.
That's insane because the raids are actually one of the most interesting parts. They're really inventive.
Absolutely critical for reaching max level in these early days.
Not only that, but you did need a consistent group of people to communicate with for those. They were incredibly difficult. And they didn't, because mechanically they didn't play the way the strikes or any.
This is what made the game. This is the hallmark. These raid teams were separate.
Yeah,
they were separate from the rest of the development knowledge. Then the next DLC, House of Wolves, comes out. And it's also equally underwhelming. Doesn't add a raid.
The
really
MyChem
adds a lot more
song?
stories.
That one was worse, right?
Yeah. It did add something which was cool, which was now they added some sort of leveling up thing for your guns. You could get this item where you could bring any gun in the game up to the maximum light
This was
level,
around the time me and...
so now you could customize more. Instead of having to have, in vanilla and the first DLC, you had to have... Everybody looked the same because that was what the max armor was. In this, you could use any type of armor to get
This was around the time I fell off. Yeah. I mean, they were able to kind of right that ship a little bit with Taken King, but around this time, this was...
This is when some of the changes started being shown from the board, but this dropped a lot of people off the map.
Yeah.
Bungie, however, was in luck. Activision had an abbreviated name. Enter... famous developer of the hit 1992 game The Lost Vikings, Game Titan Blizzard.
Did you do Rock and Roll Racing?
Yeah.
Okay, the best Blizzard game.
Diablo 3 director Josh Mosquera, I'm sorry.
No, I think you're right.
He noticed uncanny parallels between these two games. They had very rocky starts.
Yeah, Diablo 3 did,
and they had the potential to be saved by upcoming expansions. Diablo was saved by its expansion.
Yeah.
Diablo 3 is incredible, I think.
Diablo 3 is fun as shit.
Reaper of Souls is great.
Yeah.
Those console versions are pretty good.
They went over a bunch of things with Destiny developers. They brought a whole team in and talked to them, but one thing stands out. And the thing that stood out was that gamers are big baby dum-dums. And that random loot / dice rolls are not good.
They don't like Yahtzee.
They don't like it.
I love Yahtzee. I just didn't like Vanilla Destiny.
If you had static rewards, everyone would just complain because they were like, well, this is supposed to be an MMO. How come everybody gets the same gun? If I worked for this gun, blah, 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 blah.
You gotta flex those muscles somehow.
So, since they're a hard group to please, Diablo came up with a plan. They said, there's a good way to simulate randomness, but put your thumb on the scale in terms of the players. So
That's a science.
they shared this with Destiny. They designed missions to have guaranteed rewards while also maintaining that serotonin slot machine that keeps people who love that smooth shooting coming back over and over again for the grind.
I love gambling.
So it worked. And games change scope all the time. Usually,
totally.
everyone sets out.
We talked about Siege earlier,
Yeah.
and we did an episode on Final Fantasy XIV. Look at that.
Yeah, exactly. You set out with these ambitious as possible, and then you come up with constraints of time or money or technological boundary, and you tend to scale back your game, and you do what you can do best and realistically as possible.
Yeah.
This is no different for Destiny, and the content problem of this game is something that'll plague it until the end.
Yeah.
I think the early hammering of this 10-year plan that we talked about earlier, they remember all this shit where they talked about, like, our entire company is working for one IP.
They had, like, shareholder meetings for that shit.
Other people, they all work on several games, not us. Our whole staff is dedicated to this. All this stuff. And how they're talking about, this is going to be an MMO. This is going to be, like, a massive multiplayer. It's going to be incredible. Jump in and out with your friends, fire teams, all this shit. They shot themselves in the foot with all that hype.
They did, because it was much more in line to something like a Guild Wars than something like a WoW. Like the instance nature of, like...
You tell me World of Warcraft, but it's a first-person shooter, I'm fucking hard. Yeah. I was hooked.
Yeah.
It's not what it was.
And sci-fi, yeah.
It's not what it was. They shot themselves in the foot. They were way too ambitious.
The problem was, like, I'm a big Borderlands fan.
Yeah, absolutely.
Too. And it was like, it just wasn't close enough to either. It was some weird middle ground.
Yeah.
It was some weird middle ground. It, like you said earlier, but the Giant Bomb guys, it had the potential to be the game of the year or the greatest game ever made.
It's interesting because they do these deliberations at the end of every year where they do very long, unbroken discussions about like the games that came out that year, and they simultaneously, I think, gave Destiny one of the most disappointing games of the year, but also put it on their list of one of the best games of the year.
Yeah.
And they did a really good job kind of elaborating what that meant. Where they were just like, hey, this is something we all care very deeply about, but this is not
it could have been better.
It could have been so much more.
That should have been the tagline of Destiny. Incredible. Could have been better.
Yeah.
The player base was thirsty for more to do. Always, always, always.
I know, that was me.
Which is not a bad problem in its core, because it means your players are playing the game so much that they're doing everything.
It means they like it. Yeah.
But those more vocal and consistent players were just that. Vocal. They were talking about it online and all this shit, spreading, talk about how the game has not enough to do and all this shit.
You got message boards and podcasts.
Originally, Destiny was supposed to release with a full $60 DLC every other year of a major release.
Yeah.
But this plan quickly came up against that scope wall issue. Bungie decided to focus their attention on this new map instead. This is at the advice of the Diablo 3 devs. They would focus on one map, and they would focus on the fact that they needed to increase the progression, like fine-tune the progression, just give the attention to just one map in general, jam as much content they could into this now $40 DLC instead of a $60 DLC. And like Austin mentioned earlier, this map was actually pulled from Vanilla Destiny. It was cut out of Vanilla Destiny, and they used it for the DLC.
Oh, Destiny Classic.
Most of the content that was reserved for that full $60 DLC was actually pushed off to a totally different developer, some Moon something.
Wait, really?
High Moon Studios.
High Moon Studios.
Funny you don't know them, because the other night we were talking about your Destiny episode, you brought up Transformers War for Cybertron. That's High Moon.
Wait,
Okay,
what?
no
I thought
shit.
that was Platinum.
Yeah. No. Transformers Devastation is Platinum.
Oh.
War for Cybertron and Fall of Cybertron, the two behind-the-back shooting games.
Yeah, I remember
That's
this.
High Moon.
Holy
High Moon
shit.
Studios.
Okay, nice.
Okay.
Well, yeah,
Those people helped make...
Was this published by Activision
They
as well?
pushed off all the
Yes.
stuff
Okay.
that... So originally the $60 DLC was supposed to be all this shit.
Yeah.
They instead pulled some shit from Vanilla Destiny, put it in that, made it that, pushed off all the shit that was supposed to be in the $60 DLC onto High Moon, and they put that into the full-length sequel that was supposed to come. whatever that would be.
Damn. Okay.
Ends up being Destiny 2, as we now know.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Not planned from the start.
One of the major issues with this scaling, one of the major issues with the fact that they couldn't produce content, was the engine itself.
Yeah, which I know Austin has some words about how
anyone
this
who
was
would
built.
examine this would say that, and especially all the things I read behind the scenes, Bungie is very competent at handling the technology behind their matchmaking system. They are really good. Bungie practically
I mean, they
They did,
They
yeah.
invented
more or less
matchmaking.
invented it.
For more on that,
Um,
please check out our Halo.
Also, Destiny is
episode.
one of the
And our-
prettiest
the Xbox
games
Live.
I ever did see. It is beautiful, as we talked about earlier. Incredible skyboxes, all this shit.
Yeah,
it's
it
also
never, it doesn't drop frames like it's a. Yeah,
it's also incredibly smooth, and
Yeah.
part of that reason is because Bungie also invented friction. They also invented like soft targeting lock. A lot of things that are important, and I think soft targeting lock actually might have been GoldenEye, but friction and shit is Destiny.
Yeah.
But like a lot of this stuff that are involved in making shooters what they are today, Bungie came up with, and they're really important to that. However, the tools from the engine that the developers used to make the actual content of the game was, quote, shit.
All right, let me get into how shit it is.
yeah.
So
Lay it on us.
I remember this information coming out because when Destiny came out, they made it a point to be like, hey, what the fuck? There's like 4 planets in it, and every expansion, you're not adding planets. Taken King comes out, adds 1 planet. You go back, you look at the article from Jason Schreier, they mention things like a planet called Europa.
Yeah.
They mentioned that Mercury was supposed to be in Destiny 1. The Dreadnought was supposed to be in Vanilla Destiny. The reason as to why that didn't happen was because their tech was good, but their content pipeline was like incredibly fucked.
Yeah.
And there's an interview with somebody who worked there, and they used this example. They said, okay, let's say a designer looks at the map and says, okay, I want that resource node there moved 2 inches to the left. You have to go into the editor. In order to edit a map, you have to load a map. This takes 8 hours.
Jeez.
8
So
hours.
people would often load maps overnight. Sometimes you would get into the office in the morning. If the importer didn't fail, you could open the map. If it did, you would try again the next day. After the map was loaded, it would take about 20 minutes to open. Then you could go in and move that resource node 2 inches, 2 feet to the left, which would take about 5 seconds. And then you would need to do another 15 to 20 minute compile. All this for a half-second change.
Ugh.
That's just changing one thing on a map.
Yeah.
And how many times through development do you think that had to happen?
A
That is
lot.
the actual development of the physical content.
Yeah.
We're not talking about the structure that manages the shooting or the guns or the designing of the guns or the designing of this and that and this and
Yeah.
that. The reason you see so many reskinned guns, reskinned enemies, all this shit in Destiny is because they were like, we need everybody working on actual content if we're going to finish it in time.
I mean, yeah, my biggest problem with base Destiny was the mission structure kind of ended up being like, hey, send your ghost to this thing, protect it while you fight off enemies. And then, like,
Yeah.
but over time, things like the raids proved that there were way more ambitious ideas. Like, I don't think the game was meant to be structured.
It was
in
not
the-
meant to
yeah.
be structured like that. These
Yeah.
are things that they came up against their technological.
And they were
flaws.
able to kind of they were able to kind of triumph past that because of how well their shooting felt, and like, you know, or,
The engine will consistently come up as one of the major blames for the fact that this game didn't end up the way it could have been.
was this
Certainly
game,
the lack of content.
Yeah, certainly like
was
that.
this engine based on a previous?
No, it
No.
was built.
This is
Built from the ground up for
up.
Destiny, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful engine from the outside looking in. Again,
It is. It works
Game's
well with
smooth,
the
runs
matchmaking.
great.
It's
They're able to
smooth,
get it
it's
going on
Yeah.
every platform.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it functions well. It's just that the developer toolkit is trash.
Right.
Yeah, specifically their content pipeline
Yeah.
Okay.
is garbage, or was garbage. I don't know where they're at now, but
I'd like to think that they've probably
I think they've improved it. But I've heard stories that it's still not
still
there.
what it needs
Yeah.
to be.
And that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, like I also said, the engine and the time constraints ended up forming some sort of paralysis when it came to making more content. They showed
I
that.
mean, every time it
Yeah.
sounds like it did delay the process. Yeah.
Absolutely. You're up against time. They go, we have 20 minutes to do this, but we also want to do this, but we can't
Yeah.
do this. So you end up just doing nothing. It showed that these things had already hampered the release of the 2 smaller DLCs and the major expansion. They were worried that these weak tools would ultimately put them behind on a never-ending demand for content. Content pipeline, just like Austin said.
10 years.
Something had to change.
Yep.
So, despite that there was supposed to be a rigorous schedule that they were supposed to keep in their contract, Bungie approached their feudal lords Activision and asked for relief. Please, we need a chance to catch up because our players are mad. And we've put out the Taken King, and we think we saved the game. People are coming back.
A lot of people came back with Taken King.
Taken King is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Taken King is phenomenal. It saved the game for me, for sure, and it brought in a lot of the people I
think
with.
if Destiny launched as what the Taken King was, this would be a very different conversation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Phil started playing when the Taken King came out. I think that's why he was like, I was always so mad. I was like, you didn't just have to endure.
You don't
the
know.
last
You
year.
don't know what
I
Destiny
mean?
1
Like,
was.
Yeah.
Yeah, whenever I played Destiny 2 with people and they'd start complaining about the loot systems, I'd be like, you don't even know.
You don't. Yeah.
You didn't go through the hardships that I went through.
You didn't do the loot cave
Yeah,
like
you
We're
me.
doing the
Loot
dark
Cave.
days. So their new plan, instead of releasing 2 new DLCs after the major release, they would drop that model and move on to an annual model. So they would put out a new game every year, and they would then dribble out free content leading up to the release of each new game every year. And to make up that revenue for the lost DLC, microtransactions.
Woo! I mean, they were
Yay.
cosmetic though.
Yeah.
But-
So they added them. They were purely cosmetic,
Was
just
that
like you said.
silver? Is that the currency?
Yes,
Yes.
silver.
Yeah.
They were purely cosmetic, just like you said, but anyone with half a brain will tell you, any game of this nature, the end game is about half the cool gear and the good shit you get,
Totally.
and the other half is about the aesthetic.
Chelsea just
Yeah.
said that about
It's
Final
absolutely
Fantasy.
the
Yeah.
truth. How you look in the end game of an MMO like this is absolutely important.
And the,
Yeah.
the and the
Spend
character
ti-
design and artwork in Destiny is designed to make you show off.
Yeah,
That's what
I
you-
would
yeah.
spend time getting the best specs, coolest looking.
Remember the
My-
way shaders used to work compared to
I did that. We were playing Dauntless, me and a couple of our friends, and I was like, they were like, all right, everybody ready? I was like, hold on, I gotta make my armor pink.
I gotta look
Yeah.
cooler
And
than you.
They were
Hold
like,
on.
they're like, come on, let's just ready up. And I was like, no, guys, because if I beat the boss and my armor's green, then does it even matter?
No, it doesn't. Why do you think of the division? Like me and Rob would always have
Yeah.
like Nikes and pink baseball caps
Yeah.
and stuff. Like it's like it's fun. That's the point of these games. Like
Yeah.
why do they add all these cosmetic items? Because they know we like all this cosmetic shit. Why do I spend all this time getting gold and buying Overwatch skins? Or
Yeah.
fucking why do I spend money and
Yep.
these things? So why do I spend money in Rocket League to get cool tires? Because it's fucking cool.
Yeah.
So this plan worked, or at least it seemed to. The rest of the content released for Destiny was free. And it wasn't bad either. They put in a whole nother expansion with a new raid and a bunch of other missions, and then after that they took everything from the vanilla Destiny and all the original stuff and brought it all up to level scale so you could play anything from the game
I remember that.
at your appropriate difficulty and all that
Yeah.
stuff. It was awesome. I'm a bit biased, so it's hard to see from the inside how well this game actually did.
I'll play opposite of you. It's crap. It's all shit.
Yeah.
I'm in the middle.
I was there from the beginning and I stayed to the end. And it was an amazing ride,
Same.
of which I enjoyed every second of when I wasn't complaining about the lack of never-ending content. People seem to be surprised that the game did as well as it did. Destiny
Really?
was ravaged by bad tech, a thirsty fan base, leaks, firings, lawsuits, rewrites, and I still played it for 2,067 hours and 20 minutes.
And as far as I know, that game still sold well. Didn't
Yeah.
it? Yeah.
And
If
my
they had
num-
unrealistic projections, that's one thing. But
My 2,067 hours and 20 minutes is the low end of the number that the people I played with.
I mean, you got me dwarfed. I think I played it for like 600 something hours.
Yeah.
Jesus, you both have me
A
dwarfed.
mine was like 80 something days. The highest guy that I was friends with on Xbox had 186 days.
Oh my god.
So 100 more days.
I probably
than me.
played Destiny
So
1
we're
like
talking
between 40 and
4,000
60 hours.
You can look it up.
4,000 hours.
Can you? Oh, right. Yeah, there is a
If
way.
you
Yeah,
played
yeah.
on Xbox, you can.
I did, yeah.
Yeah, I think yours was like 50 something hours.
That's probably about right.
Yeah.
So
I
I
believe
want to
it.
end this with my personal gushing real quick. I brought it up in the beginning what video games mean to me, and the fact that like, despite you dropping off Randall after the third DLC,
I didn't
or
have the same
whatever
network of
DLC,
people, you know?
Despite you playing it for 600 hours, still enjoying it, all the thing, we all had different experiences.
Yeah.
This was a really important game to me. For 3 years, I played this game all the time. Weekends, weekdays.
As somebody who has a Smash Brothers and a Rock Band tattoo, I totally understand.
Yeah. More than half of the friends I have on Xbox Live are from Destiny. My friendships were strengthened, and I made friendships. There's a couple of guys that were in our clan that live in like Florida and like California that I'm friends with on Facebook. I like pictures of their kids doing things.
That's
you know
what
what
video
I mean?
games are about,
I'm
dude.
friends with them
Yeah.
on Instagram. Like we talk to each other. We work together, and we met each other because we played Destiny.
Yeah, that happened to me with Halo.
The raids.
Yeah.
The raids were, like you said, 13% of the fan base played them. The raids were a thing where you had to work together, work hard.
We have people that are integrated into our network of friends because of Overwatch.
Because of Overwatch.
Yeah, like it's, yeah.
I was sharp at those raids. Me and Phil would log on a Friday night. The King's Fall is the name of the Taken Kings raid.
Yeah.
I know that raid. I could do it right now. We can pop on Xbox. I can get a full team. I can lead a whole team of newbies through it.
I'm going to blindfold you.
Me and Phil would jump on that, and on a Friday night, we got nothing else to do. Let's crack open a beer, smoke a bowl, and hop on a Destiny.
Yeah.
Let's see what we're doing. Oh, I'd put a post. For noobs only. Get people who had never done the raid before. Here's how you do it.
God, where were
Work
you when
all
I was
night.
playing this back
Get
in the
these
day,
people
huh?
through this thing.
I know,
The
right?
accomplishment.
Yeah.
When
Me
these
and
peop-
Austin would have killed to have a...
yeah, when these people didn't know what they were doing, we would lead them through because I could play that game like the back of my hand. Or play with a team of experienced people. We'd finish it in like 20 minutes. Like, it's just those moments that you get in that game. Like, nothing will beat that. I played it forever.
Yeah,
Just
what it's
getting to
about.
hop online, talk to my friends, my entire fan base. Whenever I talk, my Xbox Live friends, the days in this, I'm talking about Destiny. We all jumped off, played Overwatch for a bit.
Sure.
We all jumped to play The Division for a bit.
Yeah.
The game that actually killed us was Breath of the Wild. Everybody eventually got off of Xbox to play Breath of the Wild and never came back.
A lot of people use Destiny as a reference when talking about podcast games. I'm quoting with my fingers, where it's like it's a game where you can just catch up with your friends or listen to something like a record or a podcast and just sort of like have this sort of, like, you know what I mean? Like it just just feels nice. It's just
does.
yeah.
2,000 hours. I sat there 60 hours. It's just my throwaway number. 2,000 hours.
Catch up on shows.
I would play this game. I would slide and duck and jump. I had 3 max level characters. I finished every single raid on normal and hard. I have
Damn.
every single achievement. I have almost
Wait, do you really?
I have
Whoa.
almost every possible Grimoire card. I'm almost maxed out. Like I just did everything. Those game had I just drained it dry.
Yeah.
I complained about the
You
grind.
wrung that game out like a towel.
I complained about the grind. I accepted the grind. I have every gun, every exotic weapon. I did every event.
Yeah.
Me and Phil did
still
the
have
Valentine's
self-awareness
Day
about
duels
it,
event and we slaughtered people. I figured out how to glitch myself on top of the vaults in the tower. I have pictures of that game. The moments we played in the raids, just having fun. I remember like, oh, this kid played the entire game with us, and at the end he was like, I never did the raid before, and we were like, oh, we knew it the entire time. And he was
You wanna know
funny.
something crazy?
The people you meet, the people you hate.
I've been playing video games my whole life. Destiny was my first raid.
yeah.
That was the first time I ever got to
Same.
experience something like
And
that.
that's all
Same.
of those. Vault of Glass, Crota's End, the whole arena, the Wrath of the Machine, and King's Fall are all the raids. And I did all of them. I know how to do all of them. I can even do it to this day. I know all the strategies. I know all the guns. There are things like the Gallahorn. Let's talk about that. A famous gun. It's a rocket
Yeah.
launcher.
Yeah, they
that
sell like
and-
a model of it at GameStop, don't they?
It's an exotic rocket launcher. It hits an enemy and then bursts into a bunch of
Yeah,
things,
it's a cluster
and then all those
rock-
clusters
yeah.
explode. It was the best weapon in the game. It was coveted. If you had a Gallahorn, you were boss. But back when the RNG was a loot system, it
Yeah.
was cool. My brother kept playing Destiny forever and ever and never got one. By the time he got one, it just came on my time hop thing on Facebook. He got one, and on the post, I'm commenting like, hey, sorry to say I've sharded 10 times more Gallahorns than you've ever gotten. Meaning I destroyed it and broke it down
yeah,
for
you
its
broke it down for
materials.
parts. It warms my heart to see the way that you talk about Destiny and the way Austin talked about Halo in our previous episode, because that is exactly what I'm going to do for Tetris.
Exactly. And that's what video games mean to me. Video
make
games
you guys
mean to me
sit
these
and listen.
connections, these just loving moments.
Subject you all to
It makes me fucking like really emotional to think about
Yeah.
the time I put into that game and the amount of time I spent
It's
with
meaningful.
people in that.
Yeah.
It means something to me. It was a big portion of my life. There's a time when I can say this is back when I was playing Destiny. That's a moment of my existence on this fucking planet
I
in this
ask
universe.
you, does Destiny feel like it was almost 5 years ago? Is
Yeah.
that crazy to think?
Yeah.
Like, it's like that the story we're talking about is almost half a decade.
Yeah.
Like, that's...
It's incredible.
Halfway through that 10-year plan, man. Can't wait for the next half.
And it just means so much to me. I don't think a game will ever mean that much to me ever again.
Oh, I wouldn't say that. You gotta leave that heart open.
I mean,
Maybe Minecraft has come close.
there's
You've got a
it's
Minecraft
it's a-
tattoo, huh?
it's a
Where's
time-
your Destiny tattoo?
It's a
I
time
wanted to
and a
get
place thing.
the Darkness Zone skull where I have my Half-Life tattoo.
Yeah, I'd be all
but
about it.
I never did. I was like, I want to get the Half-Life tattoo.
yeah, it's a time and a place thing, right?
Yeah.
Totally. That's like all video games. That's why I hate it when people
there-
go back and
there will be
they judge
games-
games differently.
Yeah.
Where they're like, GoldenEye's not that good. And it's like, fuck you, man.
It's
it was
not.
a different time. Like,
I'm
like,
just kidding.
we'll fight you.
When you do a GoldenEye episode, I'm gonna rant the whole time about how good Halo is. You should do that to me. But like games like Life is Strange
That's a good example.
and games
yeah.
like Transistor and shit like that,
Oh,
like
yeah.
they mean the world to me. Things like The Last of Us. You know
Oh my
why?
God,
I
yeah.
remember the day I graduated college because I went home from my graduation.
Yeah.
I sat through my graduation dinner with my family, pissed off because I had a copy of Last of Us waiting because it came out the day I graduated college.
I think I've said this before. I beat BioShock Infinite the night my parents split up. So it
Yeah.
was like once my house was empty, that was my first it made that ending so much
I
more.
told you.
Because there's an alternate universe there. Where
Fucking
you're-
BioShock Infinite. I came home, bought that game. I came home from when I had 4 college finals in 24 hours.
Oh my god. I do you didn't sleep, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like awake for like 50 hours. I went home. I fucking slept for like 4 hours, like not enough. Woke up, opened BioShock Infinite, played it for 8 hours, fell asleep for another 5, beat it, and then fell asleep for like 12 hours because I could not let that game go.
I think I did that with Portal 2, where
Yeah.
it not as long as BioShock Infinite, but I remember like falling asleep for like an hour and a half and then waking back up and be like, I need to see how this ends. I need
But despite all that, like nothing will ever mean as much to me as Halo 2
Halo.
and 3 will.
Yeah.
See? And
Yeah.
Halo 3, I have that. And
Yeah.
that's
That's
what
Rock Band
video
for
games
me.
all about.
Yeah,
guys. Like,
absolutely.
Literally, the fact that we can build friendships, we can enjoy ourselves, we can define our lives by a piece of entertainment. It's hard to find another video game that like impacted me that way.
Yeah.
And it's 100% because of the connections I made.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
because of those raid nights on Friday nights, like when people were out drinking and going to the club. I was having just as much, if not
You were
more
drinking and
fun
going to the club here.
drinking and
Yeah.
fucking shooting monsters, making jokes, and and also. It's also fun to be good at a game, and I was incredibly good at that game.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah,
And
same with Halo. For me with Halo.
It was.
I remember that bachelor party where you got to.
Dude, instincts took over. We went to a bachelor party. I brought my Xbox One, and people were like, Master Chief Collection, yeah, let's boot it up.
Yeah.
And then like one person was like, I'm gonna go get a beer, and they like put their controller down, and I was like, because they had 0 kills, and I was like, free controller, you guys playing Slayer? And I picked it up when the first person in the lead had 13 kills, and I got a 25 kills spree without dying. And they're like, Jesus, man, we're just trying to have fun. I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't know what came over me.
That's what we do when we play Point Tetris and we do 3v1. We make it all you guys against me. Yeah,
Right?
it always that's a powerful feeling.
And that's why I'm happy you guys let me do this one, and I talked about
course,
it
of
because
course.
Destiny means a lot to me. And
I don't think anyone is better equipped.
I
Yeah.
think it's a crazy story to see how it ended up not being one of the best, but it had the potential to be one of the best games of all time to everybody.
Even so, this would mean so much to those developers. This is what.
But for me, it is probably top 3 best games of all time.
Yeah, if this somehow gets back to somebody who worked on Destiny, your work means something.
So
Or any game developer.
That's
I
gonna
guess-
feel good to
and
them,
any game-
considering the kind of feedback that they've probably gotten
Any game
about this
developer,
over the
yeah.
years. Yeah.
so I guess I love you, Destiny. I love you. There you go. I said it.
I wish it struck me the way.
After all the other times you shit on that game on this podcast.
Yeah, I was gonna say this is a collective over 30 plus episodes of you being
Yeah.
like, man, fuck that fucking game.
Now you get it. Oh yeah, then they made Destiny 2 and it sucked, and then they split from Activision, and then by my 10-year plan, that's the end.
It's on BlizzNet. Battle.net, whatever the fuck it's called.
Well, let's wrap this up.
Listen.
But little update for those of you that don't know: Destiny 2 came out. It was received okay.
Was it in the end better received than 1? I think so.
I think so, but it wasn't better received than The Taken King.
No.
And then Activision wasn't happy with the numbers of Destiny 2 because it wasn't growing as much as they'd hoped. So then Bungie split with Activision, and now Bungie is free of Activision's Overlord thing, and they're coming out with the new expansion this fall. And I'll probably play it, but
Here's hoping for a Destiny renaissance.
Yeah, I would hope so too. Because I've kept up with Destiny 2.
The foundation is there.
Up to the most recent DLC I haven't played.
Yeah, me either.
Which is what, the Black Armory, or there's 2 new ones?
No, there's one after the Black Armory.
So I haven't played the Black Armory, so I'm 2.
Oh, I played the Black Armory.
So yeah, that's where I'm at. I still played the game, but the connections weren't there.
Yeah.
I did the race.
I will
without
say
my
it
friends,
was.
and
We did have a
thing.
magical moment that we have a lot of friends that we play games with who are not console players, and me and Austin getting to experience Destiny 1 in like a lot of our friends didn't get that privilege. So when 2 came out and it launched the way it did through the Battle.net store, we got to like all these new perspectives on that game. Was kind of a crazy thing. Like to see our to see a bunch of our friends get into it for that time who didn't get to before was kind of cool.
All right.
Yeah.
And that's the Destiny episode. Want me to do the plugs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
I'd say
let's
it's
do some
time.
plugs. All right. Thanks for listening. This was obviously another personal episode, so
Yeah.
I hope you enjoyed it. Or I guess personal 2 episodes.
Yes.
Personal 2 episodes.
Yeah.
You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at Hot Button Cast. We'll be keeping you up to date on all things Hot Button there. We also have a website, hotbuttoncast.com.
Mm-hmm.
We have a YouTube channel, Spotify, Google Play, iTunes, if that's still around when you're listening to this. Who knows?
I don't know what the fuck's going on.
Yeah. It just opened on my computer without me asking.
Me too.
Earlier, and I hate it. But yeah, thanks for listening, and stay tuned for more.
Yeah, go install Destiny 1 and play it.
Yeah.
I might after tonight.
All right. And with that, we're out.